Hello, I'm Leonardo Puglisi. Welcome to Uncensored right here on 6 News, where we go in depth with the key newsmaker about issues that matter to them and matter to you. Tonight, we speak to Tasmanian State Opposition Leader Rebecca White, discussing the possibility of a minority government after the election in just days, plus her policies and the new Tassie Football Club. I spoke to her a little earlier. Rebecca White, thanks very much for being here.
Thank you very much for having me, Leo.
So, look, obviously, you've run in more than one campaign as the Tas Labor leader. What makes you think it's going to be third time lucky this time around?
I have. I was elected first to the Parliament in 2010, so I have a lot of experience that I bring to this job. This is a really important election campaign, and I think that experience is going to be really valuable, particularly when you think about some of the challenges that are confronting our state in housing, health, and of course, cost of living. And I know that my team and I can bring our experience to start to address some of these if we're elected.
So, obviously, there are more than a few issues at play here. I want to start, first of all, with cost of living. That's a nationwide issue. What would you do to address it? What are the policies you're bringing in this campaign?
It is a nationwide issue, and I know that state governments can't do everything about cost of living, but you should do everything you can. And that's where my government will be focused on making sure Tasmanians pay a Tasmanian price for power, because here in Tasmania, we produce all of our energy locally, and yet we're paying a mainland price for our power. We want to protect Tasmanians from spikes we're seeing in coal and gas prices because we are a renewable energy powerhouse and we should be able to provide that price for our customers here in our state. It's also about providing support for families, providing free lunches to our primary school children. If you've got a family with two children, this will save on average $4,000 a year off your grocery bill, making sure that families can pay their school fees over the course of the year rather than all up front, because that can be a real cost pressure, particularly straight after Christmas. Making sure that people can afford accommodation. Housing is a really big challenge in Tasmania. I'm sure it is elsewhere too. But in particular, I think Tasmanians have noticed it because it has more, it's been traditionally quite affordable to live in our state, and that's no longer the case. So people are feeling enormous amounts of pressure. We've got a significant number of policies to support people into accommodation as well.
There are more than a few parties at play here. We know the Jackie Lambie Network's one that's come out from obviously not contesting last time, and they've been in some of the more polls recently. Why should a voter, especially those who might be really disaffected, might have voted with the Liberals last time in 2021, why should they go to the ALP and not to the Greens, not to Lambie, not to one of the many independents that are contesting in the 5 electorates?
Yeah, look, that's a really good question because there's certainly a move for change in Tasmania. After 10 years of a Liberal government, I can really feel across the community that people want a change in government. And there are people who are wondering where they vote. Is it right to vote for an independent Green, other parties, or are they going to switch to another major party? I'm asking people to vote for the Labor Party because if you actually want to change the government, voting for a minor party or the Greens could still see the return of the Liberal government. They've been very clear that they'll do deals like that. And also some of those minor parties have as well. The Greens and some independents have said they'll support the Liberal Party if they are elected. So if people genuinely want to change the government, I'm asking them to support Labor because we can implement our plan to tackle cost of living, to set Tasmania up for a better future, a real game changer with housing. People can't get that change if they vote for minor parties or independents.
Fair enough in terms of the fact that some might, yes, support the Liberal government, but we know based on multiple polls over multiple months, there is a pretty significant vote for some of these potential crossbenchers. At times, their combined vote rivaling Labor's. So just to be clear, if there is a minority government, what exactly are you going into it? Are you committing to any deals? Are you ruling anything out? What can you actually say? Given it seems like a more than likely possibility.
It's a really important question. It is a really close election, and there is a very high possibility that there will be a minority government after Saturday. I've been really clear with Tasmanians that we're seeking an endorsement to form a majority government because that's the clearest way we can deliver on our plan for our state. But I've also been clear that if we are elected in minority, that we won't be compromising on our values or our plan to start tackling cost of living and to start repairing our health system to build more housing. It'll only be a Labor government with a Labor cabinet. We won't be doing any deals with the Greens or minor parties. but we'll respect the fact we live in a democracy, and ultimately the Parliament will reflect the will of the people. We'd be seeking the support, not just of the broader community this election, but the Parliament to implement our plan if we're successful to form government.
So just to be clear on that before I move on, is that potential confidence in supply, but no Greens or Lambie in cabinet? Is that it?
Well, that's exactly right. I wouldn't be doing any deals to trade away our policies or to trade away cabinet positions. If people support Labor, they'll be getting a Labor government with a Labor ministry and a Labor plan to start to take urgent action on the cost of living, to start repair our health system, to provide more housing to people. I'm not in the business of doing deals. I think if Tasmanians are voting Labor at this election, they deserve the right to know that that is a vote for a Labor government, not for something else.
All right. Now, the expanded Parliament obviously seems to be something that some believe could benefit some of these crossbenchers. How do you think will play into it, given, of course, I mean, this is the first time in decades that it's at the size of seven seats per electorate?
Yeah, that's right. We've got a multi-member electorate system. So there are 7 members elected from each of our 5 electorates. And this Parliament is expanding by 10 seats. So there is a real opportunity for people to win a seat in Parliament here without challenging an incumbent member. I've got a great team across the state who are working incredibly hard. We've got a clear plan for our state that's about challenging some of the problems that we see, providing solutions around cost of living, health and housing, and of course, focusing on how we grow our economy, creating secure jobs in Tasmania. People at the end of the day across our state will decide on Saturday who they seek to have in the Parliament. I'm asking for their support to form a Labor majority government, but also I'm also acutely aware that there are a lot of people with their name on the ballot paper this election.
Now, Jeremy Rockliff only recently has proposed a ban on MPs defecting. Obviously, we've seen what's happened with Liberals quitting and becoming independents, though Labor is no stranger to defections. Do you support that proposal?
It's certainly not our policy, and I don't think it's even constitutional, to be honest. There's real questions about this, and it's really a reflection of some of the dysfunction in the Liberal Party that the Premier is proposing to change the constitution of Tasmania to ensure that he can have stability in the Parliament. It's quite a radical step, and it just reminds people why we're having this early election in the first place is because he couldn't manage his own backbench. He had people defect. And of course, he's now plunged the state into the 3rd election in 6 years because of that dysfunction.
Now, we're seeing the Tasmania Football Club launch. Now, you've obviously been critical of the new stadium, which the AFL says is necessary to actually deliver the club. Can Tasmanians, who I'm sure many of them have been looking forward to this club for decades, can they be assured that it would be safe under a white Labor government?
Yes, they can be. And I've been really clear about this. The team will be safe no matter who's elected on the weekend because both major parties support the club. We've long been a strong supporter of Tasmania getting its own team in the AFL, both for a men's and a women's side. It's very exciting to see us get closer to that, and I look forward to seeing it realised when we have our players run out on the ground.
The Liberals have been campaigning a fair bit, and I've seen it on social media. I guess they've said that you've been, flip-flopping on this. They've saying you're unclear on that. At the very minimum, could the perception that you've been unclear on the stadium and the team hurt Labor's chances?
We've been very clear on this. For 2 years now, actually, I've been saying that a stadium's not the right priority for the Tasmanian taxpayer. It's not the right priority for our state. We're dealing with significant challenges in health and housing and cost of living. A priority for a Labor government would be to address those matters as some of the fundamental responsibilities of any good government. The Liberal Party can say what they like, but the reality is that they've really divided the state when it comes to this matter. There was previously a very strong unity ticket for us to get a team in the AFL. Their inclusion of the stadium in that agreement has divided not just the political support, but I argue the entire community as to whether or not we really agree in agreement on this. At the end of the day, this is a project that didn't go to Cabinet. It hasn't been costed by Treasury. It's incredibly reckless for the Premier to have signed an agreement like this that does require the Tasmanian taxpayer to bear the costs of any overruns to build a stadium. And as we see in recent news reports, even just this week, the cost to build stadiums is continuing to escalate, and Tasmania will not be immune from that. And our budget is in real risk
All right, just finally, let's say you are elected, it'd be a clean sweep for Labor governments nationwide. What would be the immediate priorities when you were, if you were sworn in as Premier?
Thank you. Well, my immediate priority and immediate priorities for Labor government will be to take action on cost of living. It's by far and away the biggest issue for our state. And we've said that within the first 100 days, we will legislate so Tasmanians pay a Tasmanian price for power. There are also other priorities around supplying more housing to people. There is an urgent need for people to be able to afford their own home. Our Game Changer plan does exactly what it says on the box. It's a game changer. It supports people with zero deposit to enter home ownership for the first time, partnering with the government to do that. These are the kind of initiatives that I've been prioritising, along with the sorts of things that you would expect of any good Labor government, investing in essential services like health and education, providing job security across the Tasmanian public service, and making sure we invest in the things Tasmania is very good at and very proud of around renewable energy, agriculture, and our visitor economy.
It's going to be a fascinating race to watch. Really appreciate your time and hope to have you on again very soon. Rebecca White, thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Leo.
And that is Uncensored. Remember, of course, you can watch full Tasmanian state election coverage from 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time on Saturday night. And of course, you can catch up with any other episodes of Uncensored right here on our YouTube channel. I'm Leonardo Puglisi. Thanks for tuning in.